What's going on, everybody? Anthony here with Duke City Aquariums, and today I'm going to show you how to add an air stone to your sponge filter, so stick around. Alright, so first we kind of need to ask ourselves why we're doing this. Why would we want to add an air stone to a sponge filter? And for many people, including myself, there's two reasons. Well, there's probably more than two reasons, but there's two main reasons. The first being that it adds more oxygen to your water. Now, a sponge filter already adds a decent amount of oxygen to your aquarium. However, adding an air stone will do that even more. Let's see. So now the second reason is going to be that it makes your sponge filter quieter. Now, everybody who's had a sponge filter before knows that it sends out these large bubbles all the way to the top of the aquarium, and they pop on the surface, and they create this kind of glug 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 sound. Now, for me, I run sponge filters in all of my aquariums, and none of my aquariums have lids on them. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me to add an air stone, because what the air stone does is it turns those giant bubbles into little mini ones, but it creates a ton more. So it's a ton of little mini bubbles coming up and popping on the surface, and I'm going to show you that in some B-roll in a little bit, and I'm going to show you exactly what it looks like when you do add the air stone to the sponge filter. So like I said before, I don't run lids on any of my aquariums, so having a ton of sponge filters can be pretty noisy. So this was a definite no-brainer for me to be able to do this little hack. So real quick, a couple of disclaimers before we get started. This will, if you decide, it's not reversible. So if you decide that you don't want to, so you do this modification, you put the air stone in, you decide you don't want it, you're probably gonna have to buy another sponge filter, because it's very hard to reverse this process. Okay, you're probably just better off buying a new one, but it's okay because they're only like 10 bucks anyway. The second one is, I don't know how this affects performance of the sponge filter. I don't know the science behind it. Is adding an air stone, does it make it better? Does it make it worse? I don't know. All I know is I've modified every single one of my sponge filters for the reasons that I mentioned previously. More oxygen in the water, and it quiets them down. So anyway, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and switch camera angles here, and I'm going to show you exactly step by step how to add the air stone to the sponge filter. So let's go. Let's go to get started here. This is going to be all of the equipment. I've laid out all of the equipment that we're going to use here. Just regular pair of scissors, some cutters. Now you can kind of use anything you want. I'm using these like wire cutters, but I mean, you can use anything that's kind of heavy duty there that'll cut plastic. Okay, so those there. A small piece of airline tubing. Now I cut off a larger piece. This is probably about 8 inches or so. I wanted to cut out a larger piece because we're not going to need the whole thing, but I'd rather have a little bit too much. And then of course we have the air stone itself and our sponge filter. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to scoot a few of these off to the side for now, and I'm going to start with the sponge filter. Okay, so let's go ahead and start by taking this apart. All right, so the sponge itself, we can set that to the side. The tubing itself, we can set that to the side, and the top, we can set that to the side. So let's pull that off, and then the base as well, set that off to the side. So really all we need is these two center tubes right here. Okay, so now our goal is, I'm gonna zoom in here a little bit. You see these little tabs here in this sort of star pattern. Our goal is to cut all of those. So inside of these tubes here, there's the actual plastic air tubing. Okay, our goal is to remove that. So we're gonna go ahead and clip each one of these little stars in order to remove that inner tubing. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to take my cutters and just go right in here and clip each one. And at the end, what will happen is this middle piece will just fall right out. Okay, this little guy, it'll fall right out, and then you're left with a hollow tubing. Okay, or a hollow casing, I guess I should say. So we'll set that off there, and we'll do the same thing on this side with the other one. Now for smaller sponge filters, I'll say you won't. I think that there's probably only going to be one of these inside because it doesn't need to be as tall. But as for today, we're working on the large sponge filter, so that's why there's 2 of these. All right, and there we go. So now one of these you can just throw to the side. However, on this one, we're gonna need a small piece of one of the little tubes here, and I'll explain why later. But for now, let's just go ahead and cut off a small, I'd say maybe about 1/2 inch or so portion. All right, so now we're left with this little guy right here. It's just a little small plastic tube that we're gonna use later, so don't lose that. Let's set that to the side. Okay, so next, let's go ahead and put in our air stone. All right, so let's attach our tubing to our air stone. Put the tube over it, nice and snug there. All right, so now it's completely hollowed out, as you can see. So now we'll go ahead and take our air stone with our tubing, run it through. And push it in like that. Okay, so now inside here, we have our air stone connected to our tubing in here, okay? And we have a lot of this excess tube, but don't worry, we'll do something about that in a little bit. Now we'll go ahead and attach it to our base. Now what we can do is grab our sponge, feed the little excess tube through. Let's see if I can. And slide the sponge right back on, okay? So now what we have is our sponge filter with this long tube coming out of it. So now we'll take our scissors, hold the tube up straight, and just cut level with our sponge. Okay. Next, now we'll set this to the side for just a second. Next, let's grab our top and the little piece of tube that we cut, a little piece of plastic tubing that we cut earlier. So we'll take this and we'll attach it to the bottom of our top, okay? So just pop that sucker right on there. Right there. It just pops. Let's pull it out and it just pops right on in there. Perfect. Now what we'll do is take our sponge and the little line that was in our sponge. I know it's kind of hard to see because it's black. So what we'll do is we'll wrap that around our little plastic tube like so. And we'll scoot it on there. Nice and snug. So you're left with this right here. We'll set that down and reattach the top. And there it is right there. It's as simple as that. All of these extra pieces, you know, the extra tube and the extra plastic tubes, you know, you can set those to the side to save them for later. But it's as simple as that, guys. It's super easy, and just by looking at it, you can't even tell the difference that we modified it. However, you can definitely tell the difference once we put it in the aquarium. So let's go do that now. So here is the final product. As you can see, it puts out a lot more smaller bubbles than a normal sponge filter would. And by creating those smaller bubbles, it definitely produces a lot more oxygen in your water. And also, to me, it just looks better as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at the top of the aquarium so we can see the effect it has on the surface of the water. So as you can see here, there's definitely not as much surface agitation as a normal sponge filter would put out. And even though you can't hear it right now, it's definitely a lot quieter than a normal sponge filter. So there you have it, guys. I hope you really enjoyed that video. If you did, please leave a like and comment down below and let me know if you've done this modification in the past or if you plan to do it in the future. Now, all of these things were purchased from aquariumcoop.com. I'm not an affiliate or anything, but I will leave links in the description to the sponge filter, the airline tubing, and the airstone, so you can go check those out if you want to. But anyway, that wraps it up for today. My name is Anthony with Duke City Aquariums. I want to thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.